now for our great debate. And tonight's premise, students should get cash for good grades. And joining us to debate in New York, we've got Heather McDonald. She's a fellow at the Manhattan Institute for Policy Research, and she writes about education. Also with us, Jackie Gingrich. Cushman is in Atlanta. She runs a program that gives some low-income students incentive pay for good grades. She is also co-author, along with her father, Newt Gingrich, of the book 5 Principles for a Successful Life. We also want your opinion on this, so vote by calling the number at the bottom of your screen. First, right now, an opening statement from each of you. We have 30 seconds for each of you on the clock. Jackie, once again, the premise is students should get paid to get good grades. Make your case.
Well, Campbell, thanks for having me on. The fact is that 7,000 students every school day drop out of school. That is over 1.2 million students a year. That's a huge number, less than 70%. With a less than 70% graduation rate. So the point is, paying students to learn teaches them that learning makes a difference. And we've been doing it for a long time. Parents have done it, relatives have done it, but the fact is that not all students have parents that can do that. So it's very important that we help reach out to them.
Heather, go ahead.
Campbell, it teaches just the opposite. I think I share Jackie's goals of wanting students to understand the value of education. This creates a completely artificial situation where students expect a short-term bribe or reward for studying. What we need to teach them is education is a long-term investment. You defer gratification. You don't go partying tonight because 10 years from now you're going to have the joy of knowledge and increased social capital that will allow you to get a better job. Once you start this principle, Campbell, you cannot unplug it. There's no way to tell students from now on that you should study for its own sake rather than because you get an immediate payout.
Let me, though, follow up with you, Jackie, on a question I have, because just doing research here, there are a number of studies that have shown that these programs, like Jackie's talking about, do produce significant results and can raise test scores. I mean, isn't that ultimately what we want?
Well, they do work. I mean, there's a situation in New York. They're running the Sparks program. Third graders that last year tested at 60% of the class was at level is now 84% the next year. That is a huge increase. And what we found when we ran the program is that students not only learned, but they learned they could learn and they learned how to learn. And they even told us that money was not the primary motivator, but it got them there and it got them interested, and they learned they could learn.
Okay, well, let me have Heather address this, because Heather, I mean, how do you refute this?
I'd love to know, Campbell, what happened when Jackie stopped paying them. In fact, students do expect the payments. A New York student told the New York Post, "I took my test, where's my check?" This creates an expectation in students that learning is about a short-term payout. That is simply not the case. It's the wrong lesson. And I keep asking the Bloomberg administration, which is doing this program in New York, what's your end game? When do you stop paying students? Studies have found that when you stop the bribes, the effort trails off. And once you start this, you cannot confine it to certain schools or certain students. You're going to have an expectation throughout the school system that everybody should get paid. I don't know how you say to one student, well, because you're poor, we're going to pay you $50 for studying, but this student who has maybe $1,000 more in family income is supposed to do it because learning is good for you and it's the right thing to do. This creates a bizarre Skinnerian situation where we're teaching these students to press a bar for a little pellet. That's not the real world. The real world is you defer gratification and you learn for the long term.
And Jackie, that's a fair point. I mean, how do you address some of the underlying problems here for the long term?
Now, I think it's a great point, and I'll give you a few examples. One, we had a middle school student last year who looked at me and said, I was failing. What he meant was he is now passing math. He came up to me a few weeks later and said he had saved all of the money he had earned for college. Okay, this is a student who wasn't doing well in math in middle school, who is now not only planning on going to college, but saving his money. So, and again, we have to wait for the results in the long term. For the Learning Makes a Difference Foundation, we're following these kids. We used them last year. We are not paying them again this year. But they came to us at the end of that program and said, you know what, we learned we can achieve. We learned we can learn. And now we're more motivated to get involved and to be interested.
Well, if that's the case, if in fact you have evidence that you can pay kids for, say, 1 semester, 1 year, and stop it, and they continue understanding the value of education, I'm willing to look at that evidence. I've not seen the evidence so far. I do know that once you create a welfare program, it is almost impossible to dismantle it. We already have advocates in New York who are saying the payments are not large enough, it's not a large enough array of behaviors that we're paying for. I think this is a program that has a capacity to expand indefinitely, and an entire school system can be infected by this, and you have one half of society doing the right thing because it understands that learning carries its own rewards and in the long term can improve your perspective in life. Paying the other half that allegedly does not have this understanding, I think it creates a very bizarre and uncomfortable caste system.
All right, let me stop you right there. We only have a few seconds left, and we try to find common ground with these debates when we can, and I just want to see if there's one area where you both think you can agree. We have the same goal, which is to better educate our children. With regard to this program in particular, is there a compromise you could see here?
I would like, Jackie and I absolutely believe that education is the most essential thing for our country. If we can't educate our kids, we're not going to compete with China, we're not going to compete with India. Let's have our teachers do a better job of explaining to kids the beauty of knowledge and the fact that knowledge can carry them into the future.
Jackie, quickly.
No, I agree. It's very important that we understand, but let's be clear. Other situations have parents that pay their kids to get A's or to graduate. So we have people already getting paid for grades and paid to achieve. So what we're both saying is let's look at how we can motivate kids. And if everyone that's watching this program goes and talks to their child about how can you be motivated, then to me that's huge. That's a great win.
That's a great win.
Jackie and Heather, we really appreciate your time tonight. Thanks very much to both of you.
Thank you.
And let me point out that we did incorrectly, my apologies, identify Jackie as being from the Manhattan Institute. Of course, that was Heather, who is from the Manhattan Institute. We're sorry about that. We want to see how you voted for tonight's great debate. 52% of you agree that getting cash for good grades is a good idea. 48% disagree. As always, not a scientific poll here, just a snapshot from the viewers who called in. Many